Okay, hey, good morning, everybody. It is Monday morning, March 2nd, and welcome to Grounded with John Tester and Maritza Giorgio. We did a quick show with former Pentagon reporter Kevin Barron yesterday, but I heard back yesterday, Senator, from Thomas Countryman in the afternoon, and I knew that we had to re-rack and do another show on Iran.
Well, look, Iran is a big deal. It's liable to get a bigger deal before it's over with. So I think it bears some more conversation and some more points of view. And we're really happy that Tom Countryman, who, by the way, and I've already said this, had the best name in the business. I mean, how could you be against a guy whose last name is Countryman? You know, that's good.
Yeah. So welcome, Tom. I'll give you a quick. I'll do your quick bio here. We're here. So we're hearing a lot about nuclear weapons, right, related to starting this war in Iran. If anyone knows this subject matter, it's Tom. He was the. I'm going to just run through this because I can't. There's too much.
Keep
but
it
I
short.
can't skip it. So
I think
the Assistant Secretary of State for International Security and Non-Proliferation. From 1994 to 97, he was a special advisor to the United States ambassador to the United Nations, Madeleine Albright, on Middle East affairs, and was the U.S. liaison to the United Nations Special Commission. He's fluent in Serbo-Croatian, Arabic, Italian, Greek, and German. And he lost his job. He was relieved of his duties on January 27th, 2017, while you were on your way to an arms control conference, Tom. And since then, you're the chair of the Washington-based Arms Control Association. Did I get it right?
Yeah.
Well,
Let's say yes.
We both know what it's like to lose our jobs too, Tom. So don't feel alone in this. All right.
That wasn't the part that bothered me.
Okay.
Whoa, wait, what was the part that bothered you?
Is everything else that the first Trump administration did.
Oh, yeah.
And I used to give them credit that the one good thing about Trump in his first term is that he hadn't started any wars. And now that's out the window.
Yeah, good point. So you spent, fair to say, you spent most of your career, if not all of your career, working on issues around the Middle East. Is that correct?
Yeah, about half of my career, yes.
About half of your career, and so you've been able to get to know some of the. I mean, everybody talks about the fact that these guys have a different life than we do, and they probably do, and they have different perspectives and different values and different goals and all that. Maybe true, maybe not. I don't know. But in the end, you've had a chance to try to figure out how the mind works over there. Is that correct?
Yeah, and look, the Middle East is as diverse as the United States. It's very hard to make generalizations. You can speak about leaders, you can speak about governments. You get into very slippery ground if you start saying that all Israelis are like this or all Iranians are like that.
Right.
Yeah, good point. So, and I don't know if you want to start or not, Maritza. I'll just shoot some stuff off the top of my head. Okay, so
well,
we just saw the United States about 2.5 days ago start bombing Iran because of resurgence of nuclear weapons that we were told up until that time were obliterated, by the way. What's your view on the cause of was it I mean, are they rebuilding their nuclear stockpile? Were we at a point where we either had to shoot or be shot at? Where were we in this whole process from what you know?
Well, short answer is no, there was no imminent threat. Let me throw out a few points about the entire operation that we can dig into, and then I'll come back to that specific question. First, this war of choice by Trump is illegal under the U.S. Constitution, under the War Powers Act, and under international law. Second, it is unjustified. The excuses that the administration put forward for this war are simply false. Third, it is unpopular with the American people. Fourth, it's unwise because it runs the risk of spreading to a much bigger regional war, and nobody in the White House seemed to ask the basic question you ask before you start a war, which is, how will we finish it? But specifically on your question, the allegations by the noted real estate expert Steve Witkoff that Iran was days away from building a nuclear weapon, simply false. Iran does possess 400 kilograms of enriched uranium, which with additional processing time, they could turn into enough material for a couple of bombs. However, they are not processing it at the moment. The facilities they have to process it were largely destroyed by U.S. bombing last year. And having enough uranium for a bomb is not the same thing as having a bomb. The other claim that Iran was building missiles that could reach the United States imminently is also false. Iran does not have any missile with a range longer than 2,000 kilometers. Iran is 12,000 kilometers away from the U.S. They don't have the capability to attack our homeland. So that claim also was simply false. There's no indication that they are actively working on enrichment of uranium at this point, as the administration has claimed. And there, according to press reports, I don't know because I no longer see intelligence reports, the intelligence community had no indication that Iran was about to strike first by attacking American ships and bases in the region. So everything that the president has said as he throws chunks of spaghetti at the wall to see if he can find an explanation that will stick, all of them just don't add up.
So let me just ask you then, what do you think the timing is about, Tom? Why now?
Well, the precise timing, I don't know. Who can get inside the labyrinth that is that man's mind? I think part of it was that the Congress was scheduled to be out of session this week and therefore could not take a vote under the War Powers Act to authorize or not authorize the use of military force. I think part of it is that it was long planned between the United States and Israel that this was the time for attack, unless Iran accepted every last point in the negotiations. But what is especially aggravating about the attack is that negotiations were still going on Friday. And the Omani officials who had been mediating that negotiation came to Washington and said, look, we've made all these points of progress. Here are potential solutions. And just hours later, according to his own schedule, the attack was launched. I mean, another point we should talk about is the future of diplomacy. This is now the third time that Trump has interrupted negotiations in order to go straight to military action. You have to ask the question, why would any country bother to negotiate with the United States in the future if this is now the American pattern of diplomacy?
That's a fair point. That's a very fair point. So you're right. Figuring out what's going on in President Trump's mind as to why he did what he did is hard to do. But if you take him at his word, and he said that it's because of the nuclear threat or the threat of missiles, especially missiles that might not be able to hit here but can hit Europe, it's also interesting to note that none of our European allies are joining us in this battle. So obviously they didn't feel that the threat of missiles were a big enough deal to put their treasury or people at risk. So how I don't want to cut to the end really quick, but I got to. How does this end? Because the truth is, you talked about this could be turn into a bigger conflict very easily. And how we haven't had real good success in the Middle East, starting stuff and wrapping it up in a way that's been nice and tidy. How do you see this ending?
I will mention before you start, Tom, that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is saying that this will not be an endless war. So that's new this morning. So we'll just put that in here. We'll just drop
Well,
that in here before
then,
we start.
then the next question is with this is that if they pull out, it could be worse than what it was as far as
Right.
having a very dictatorial government that suppresses its people in
Sure.
Iran.
Well, there's a lot of points there I could comment on. I'll skip over commenting on the expertise of Pete Hegseth. From the Iranian point of view, one of the things the president has said is that this is an opportunity for the Iranian people to rise up and rid themselves of this regime. Now, this ignores the fact that the Iranian people are not armed, that there are more than 1 million security people loyal to the regime who just proved their ability to contain protest on the streets of Iran. There is no clear leader who would be different from Ayatollah Khamenei. So the idea that the U.S. can call for regime change following a bombing campaign is fanciful. It just won't work. There's a good commentator I saw from Iran who explained it this way, and I understand their point of view. They say, we hate this government that we have, but we also hate the idea of no government. And we have seen the chaos, the death that resulted in Iraq, in Libya, in Syria, and Afghanistan when there was no government. We are living in a house that we hate, but outside the house, there is a wildfire burning, and we are not going to leave this house. So it's not a question of the regime being unpopular. It's that regime change is not accomplished by aerial bombing. So what will Iran do instead? The Iranian regime has long understood that it is susceptible to decapitation, that the Israelis have enough intelligence and enough precision weapons to take out a lot of Iran's leaders, as they did last June. And so they have their succession plans in place in every political and military position. They will, I expect, continue to fight back at a time of their own choosing. I do not expect that they would launch all their missiles at once at Iran or at Israel or at U.S. targets in the Middle East, but they will choose the pace. Pardon me. They will choose the pace and the targets, and they may continue for a very long time, and they may continue even after the U.S. gets tired of the exercise and withdraws half of the U.S. Navy that has been deployed to the region. So I don't expect it to end easily from the Iranian side. From the U.S. side, it's as difficult to predict when Trump gets distracted as it is to predict when he gets instigated into action. There is a cost to keeping all these resources on active alert. We are spending hundreds of millions, if not $1 billion a day on this exercise. There will be American casualties, none of them from the Epstein class, but there will be American servicemen killed in this operation. And so at what point does Trump say, I've proven my point, we're ending this now? The one thing I do not expect is that it will end with a complete surrender of the Iranian regime. We didn't have that in Venezuela. It certainly is not going to happen in Iran.
So if you got a crystal ball, I don't know if you do or not, Tom. How long? I know you said you can't predict what he might do and when he might do it, but how long do you think this is going to last?
I hesitate to say. It. I think the point is it will last longer than the Trump regime says it will. That is, there will come a point where the president says, we're done. And the Iranians will say, maybe not out loud, no, you're not done. We haven't finished our payback. This will be an ongoing threat to U.S. interests and U.S. allies in the Middle East for a long time.
Alrighty, though, I saw something today, a post my former producer group chat sent me, and it basically went over all of these statements he's given to different media outlets. So for the Washington Post, he said the aim is freedom for the people of Iran. For Axios, he said maybe we can end it in 2 or 3 days. I mean, remember we heard that he would end the war in Ukraine in a day.
Yes.
New York Times, he said it might be 4 to 5 weeks. I have 3 very good choices of who might take control in Iran. I read another article that said they killed everybody that they thought might take over. And that's what he said to ABC. So we're seeing this all over the place. We're hearing it's about nuclear weapons. We've heard it's about freedom for the people of Iran. We've heard, I mean, I saw another post he put on True Social. We put it up yesterday about, saying that Iran meddled in the 2020 election. So it's just all over the place. And at any given moment, I guess I wonder from you though, Tom, he did put out kind of a warning that, when Iran vowed to retaliate, and he said that they shouldn't do that, and we would hit back in a way that they've never seen. So let's see, let me pull this up here. I'll put it on the screen. They better not do that, because if they do, we will hit them with a force that has never been seen before. What do you make of that? Because for me, we've seen a lot, including the use of nuclear weapons. So what do you think he's threatening there?
I have no idea. Yes, it's always possible to use more force than we have. At a certain point, you run out of targets unless you're just going to bomb cities, which is a little bit of the kind of war that Israel and Iran are into. You kind of run out of military targets. How will Trump approach this? Look, there's better experts than me. But from what I've seen in the 10 years of the Trump era, there are 2 things that motivate the supreme leader of the United States, and that is money and ego. In terms of money, he has learned, and his family has learned, that Saudi Arabia is the greatest cash cow, that Mr. Trump's family, having enriched themselves by $5 billion over the last year, much of it from the Gulf states, is ready to do what a leader like Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia wants him to do. And he's also convinced that in working closely with Netanyahu in Israel, that is also good for his financial future. And then there's the ego side of it as well, that if he doesn't have his peace prize, if he is not respected by world leaders, if he doesn't get an immediate yes, sir, from the Iranians for the terms he demands, his ego requires him to strike back. Note that Trump is quick to threaten military force against countries that don't have nuclear weapons. He's not made that threat to Iran, to North Korea. He's not made that threat to Russia or China. And it is not only the Iranian regime, but other countries around the world are going to draw the conclusion that North Korea has already drawn. The only way to be safe from American aggression is to have our own nuclear weapons. I'm concerned because that was my job in the government, and it's my focus today at the Arms Control Association, that in the long run, this will cause more nations to begin nuclear weapons programs, which can only destabilize the entire world.
You're right. I don't want to switch topics too much, but I've got to. So what impact does this do our actions in Iran have on the Russia-Ukraine war and China Taiwan?
Well, not very much directly. I mean, to take first Russia, Ukraine. Iran's supply of the Shahed drone has been a potent weapon for Russia in its aggression against Ukraine. And in fact, I saw one report this morning that the Shahed drone is doing more damage in Israel than the ballistic missiles that Iran is firing. That doesn't matter so much today for Russia, because Iran assisted Russia to build a production facility in Russia for these drones. So it's not going to affect Russia's arsenal of drones to use against Ukraine. Nor is Russia in a position to do anything to help Iran at this point. Sorry. To the extent that there are serious negotiations between Ukraine and Russia, and so far I see very little seriousness on the Russian side, this will further distract the United States from attempting to do anything. So, China and Taiwan. Iran would love to see China, with its powerful military, able to assist Iran. But that's not the kind of military that China has. China has a strong military built to resist any aggression against China, which they see as coming from the United States. China does not have the force projection capability that the United States has built up over the last 80 years. It can't go in and help the Iranians in any meaningful way. What should concern us is the loss of legitimacy of the United States. If a country can attack another country simply because of the leader's ego, his desire for distraction from scandal, without any imminent threat from the attacked country, then what is the meaning of the United Nations Charter or international law? I would hope that countries that have correctly condemned Russia's imperialist aggression in Ukraine would speak out about this U.S. attack as well. But it does not help any moral or legal or political argument that we want to make about China and Russia aggression. In fact, by claiming all of the Western Hemisphere as the U.S. sphere of influence, Trump already is essentially giving China and Russia a free hand to do whatever they want to do in their neighborhood.
When we talked, I think I interviewed you right after the war in Ukraine started, Tom. And I remember, you told me at that point, because there were a lot of concerns about nuclear weapons there. And you told me that you thought, it's widely considered that the biggest threat we have regarding the use of nuclear weapons is over Taiwan. Am I remembering that correctly? And does that still stand?
Yes and no. You are remembering it correctly. Does it still stand? There was a point in late 2022 when it was clear that Russia was contemplating using non-strategic, that is, quote, smaller nuclear weapons for a demonstration effect in Ukraine. And that was a serious threat. It would have been a stupid thing to do in the military and political sense. And in the end, they did not do it. that risk still remains. I'm also concerned about the possibility of India and Pakistan going to another conflict. Although their last conflict, both governments actually showed some responsibility in containing their nuclear rhetoric, but I still worry about that. I do think still that the possibility of a conventional conflict, if China launches military force against Taiwan, Taiwan resists, the US and perhaps others assist Taiwan, that if one side or the other fears defeat, it will cross the line into the use of nuclear weapons in that conflict. That's a very real scenario that we should be worried about.
We have a few comments. You have something you want to say, Senator, before I?
No. Go ahead. I mean, that's a bad scenario. That's all I got to say. That's because if nuclear weapons ever become normalized, we got a huge problem for survival of the planet, quite frankly.
So I want to just say we have Mary Moe in our chat, and she says that her son is on the Abraham Lincoln, and she wishes she knew what he's risking his life for. And Mary, like, I was thinking about mothers like you yesterday, and families in that same situation, along with families in Iran who are, watching children get blown up in an attack on a school. So there's a lot of fear right now over that. And I just want to say thank you to your son for his service. But also, we have Sam on here saying that we need to expect attacks on the homeland, on the U.S. homeland. If we kill Iranian school children, there's no reason to think that we're immune from retaliation. What do you both think of that?
On the one hand, Iran has immediate capabilities to attack U.S. bases and U.S. friends in the Middle East. And therefore, it is far more likely than launching an attack on the homeland. On the other hand, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, through their intelligence service, has a record of organizing terrorist attacks in other countries. In Argentina, back in the 1990s, and very recently, a couple of incidents in Australia that caused the Australian government to expel a number of Iranians. And that also caused the Australian government to be one of the very few countries that has supported this latest U.S. action. So Iran has a record and a capability. They've also attempted to assassinate Iranian dissidents in the United States. You cannot rule out the possibility of Iran, either directly or through a proxy, undertaking some kind of terrorist action in the United States. But the greater threat is certainly to United States interests, civilians, and service people outside the United States in the Middle East.
Yep. So there's very little doubt that there's that capacity. They've been doing it. I mean, they've been doing it since they were attacked. And as you pointed out, one of the things that, and I'd love to get your perspective on this, one of the things that our guest yesterday, Kevin Barron, said is that typically in wars like this, you have the Secretary of Defense and you have the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs standing up at a map and talking about what they hit, why they hit, what was strategic about these particular things. Interestingly enough, watching CNN yesterday, I watched two people who aren't in the government anymore do exactly the same thing. But why do you think that the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs aren't updating the people? Because every other war that I can remember that we've been in, those two folks have been updating the people on what's been going on, why they've been hitting targets they've been hitting, success rates, all that stuff. And I haven't seen one news conference. I've seen some things put out by the president, but I haven't seen anything by the military experts in this country, supposed military experts, about why things happened the way they happened and why targets were hit and the success rate and all that stuff. What's your view on that?
Well, I'm trying to remember exactly what Yogi Berra said. It was something along the lines of, if you don't know where you're going, you don't know how close you are. And that's very much what's happening here. The president has not defined a single achievable goal, and has given, as Maritza noted, several different rationales, several different excuses for the action, and has given no indication of how this finishes or what would be an acceptable outcome for the U.S. So if you have no idea why you're doing it, what the point of doing it is, and how to finish it, it's very difficult to give a progress report. I truly think that's the essential problem. General Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, is capable of giving such a progress report. Secretary of Defense Hegseth is not. So we'll see if they come up with something.
I will say that I think we've been in competition because they did have a news conference this morning, Pete Hegseth and General Kane. So
They did, eh?
They did, but that's when Hegseth said that Trump is finishing war with Iran, and he said that this is, as I said, this is not an endless war, and declared that we fight to win. But yeah, I wonder, what does winning look like in this? What does winning look like to them?
Maritza, a question for you, because I didn't see the press conference. Did they talk about?
I didn't either.
Oh,
we've been on here.
It's been going on while we've been going on. I got it. Okay.
But maybe one of our viewers has seen it. I'm just reading kind of the headlines, but they said that Pete Hegseth says that the mission is laser focused, and it will not be endless. Laser focused to take down a school. Laser focused.
Well, yes, as we found out yesterday, they took that collateral damage stuff off the books here earlier this year. So what?
Tom, is there anything? Oh, go ahead, Senator.
I was just going to say, what keeps you up at night right now? I mean, not that there isn't plenty to keep you up at night before we went into Iran, but what keeps you up at night right now? What do you see coming down the pipe that worries you?
Yeah, there's always been a lot to keep me up. If God hadn't invented bourbon, I don't know when I'd sleep. Certainly I was, until a few months ago, more worried about the situation in Ukraine. That if Russia, with the support of Trump, were to achieve its military objectives in Ukraine, we would be one step closer, not just to the end of the NATO alliance, but to actual conflict in Europe between NATO and Russia. Today, I am more concerned about Iran and about the way that the United States has now created a potential wide-ranging war in Iran that will give incentives for countries such as Iran, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, South Korea, Japan, to pursue nuclear weapons programs, which would be contrary to any hope for stability. And finally, before last week, I was also very worried that although President Trump says he wants a new three-way nuclear arms control agreement between the US, Russia, and China, he has no idea how to do it. He has not made any suggestion. He doesn't have the people who can do it. And there is simply no conversation, not just no negotiation, but no conversation between Washington and Moscow or Washington and Beijing about how to put the nuclear genie back in the bottle. We spend $100 billion a year plus on our nuclear weapons program today, including a lot of it that will be put in the ground there in Montana with new ICBMs. And we're going to spend a lot more than that in a new nuclear arms race that would exceed in cost and danger anything we saw during the Cold War if we don't begin making a serious effort to find a way forward with both Moscow and Beijing.
And as you said, why should anyone trust us? Why should anyone trust us when we go in and try to make these deals?
Yeah, nuclear arms control is a little bit different in that it's not credible to say, if you don't agree to our terms for nuclear arms control, we will launch nuclear weapons at you tomorrow. So it's not quite the same situation as Iran. And further, arms control agreements are not based on trust. They are based on mutual verification and inspection. And that's why the US and Russia succeeded, both of them, in reducing their nuclear arsenals by more than 80% over the last 40 years. Now that downward curve in the size of the arsenal is turning upward again, not just in China, but also in Russia and the United States. And
that brings up a good point, though. I mean, so to correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't the International Atomic Energy Agency actually weren't their inspectors ejected from Iran? So
yeah,
how do we actually assess the risk in Iran without those inspectors on the ground?
Yeah. So there's a very long up and down history between Iran and the International Atomic Energy Agency. Under the so-called nuclear deal of 2015, the JCPOA, Iran was constrained from enriching above a certain level. There were inspectors at every important site in Iran. President Trump tore up that deal in 2018. He chose to violate the deal, even though Iran was respecting it. And that's when Iran, after waiting for a year, went into overdrive. Started enriching to much higher levels, reduced its cooperation with the IAEA, and after the June attacks last year, totally expelled the IAEA. Now, the return of IAEA inspectors to Iran is very important if we want to know what happened to the enriched uranium that Iran possesses. And in fact, the IAEA was closely involved in the negotiations between the US and Iran last year and was putting on the table the ideas that could achieve that result: a limit on Iranian enrichment and the full return of inspectors to Iran. It is that negotiation that Trump short-circuited with this attack.
Yeah, I got you. Well,
No.
now we've uplifted all of our viewers.
That's kind of the whole thing I was just going to think of, Senator. I mean, I know that we can thank God for bourbon, but like, what can we be hopeful about, Tom? Like, what can we carry with us today as we kind of unpack all this and process everything that's happening that makes you feel any kind of hope, if there is any right now for you?
Well, 2 points. Second one for the senator. The first one is it always aggravates me to watch on television talking heads like me analyzing this in terms of throw weight and buildings destroyed. These are real people.
Right.
And we have to have in mind the servicemen and others, Americans in the region whose lives are now at risk. And we have to look with deep sympathy on the civilians in Iran who have died and are otherwise suffering. The point that ought to give us hope is there still is, according to rumor, the United States Congress still exists. And I am told that they will vote on Wednesday on a war powers resolution offered by Senator Kaine. As I said, I think part of the timing of this attack was to avoid having a vote on this before the attack. I would hope that there are a lot of Democrats and enough Republicans of good conscience who still think the Constitution means something, who will be able to say on Wednesday, this war is not authorized. Do you think we have a chance of that, Senator?
I think there should be a chance of that, but if you look at past history, when's the last one that was passed? 2002? There's been a lot of conflicts that we've been in. It didn't happen in Venezuela. And when you take a country's leader, when you attack a country and take its leader, if that's not an act of war, I don't know what is. Let me put it this way. There's always a chance, okay? But I will be shocked. I will really be shocked, Tom.
It's such a closely divided in both houses.
Yeah.
That I think that if there were a positive resolution giving him authority, that would not pass.
Yeah, that's correct.
And if there's a negative resolution saying you don't have the authority, that won't pass either.
No, that's correct.
That's my guess. But
no, that's 100% the way I see it. In fact, that is 100% the way it will turn out too, by the way. Not 100%, 99.9.
Okay.
So there's still a chance. There is still a chance.
So you're saying there's a chance. My friend Camille is on. He's saying, is a war powers vote now too little, too late, though? And I do think about that John McCain moment, and maybe that's a video that should be sent around. You remember that you were there, Senator.
I was.
John McCain thumbs down moment, right? And maybe I don't know. I think when we're talking about the things that we've talked about this morning, what does power matter? I mean, do what's right for the world.
But the challenge is, Maritza, and I don't think you'd disagree, Tom, is that for the last over a year now, we have seen Congress be AWOL. And it doesn't matter what the issue is. It doesn't matter if it's healthcare. It doesn't matter if it's food stamps. It doesn't matter what the issue is. They really haven't acted to put any controls on the executive branch whatsoever, which, by the way, the Constitution is pretty clear about. In fact, it's very clear about. And so I don't see them putting any controls on the administration on this either. I just don't.
I'll put up this little section from the statement that the ACA, that you're part of the Arms Control Association. So this is part of it. And it says the U.S. Congress and responsible states around the world have a solemn moral and legal duty to oppose this rogue aggression, beginning with emergency legislation and international mediation to stop further hostilities by all sides. So, Tom, is the ACA, I mean, are representatives from the ACA making calls? Are you trying to have meetings to persuade members of Congress to step in here and show them what's at stake?
Yeah. What we try to do, we're not a huge organization. We don't have tens of thousands of members across the country. But I hope that we have a voice. I think as with more than 50 years experience in this field, the Arms Control Association has credibility about what makes sense and what doesn't make sense when it comes to national security and nuclear weapons specifically. And we've been involved in consulting with members of the administration in trying to advise them. This is what Iran can and can't do. This is what is realistic and effective in limiting Iran's program. And I think we have one of the very best experts in that field. What we try to do when we make a statement like this is to encourage our members and anyone else who reads the statement to get involved. Call your representative, call your senator, send an email to them saying that whether or not you like Iran, this is the wrong way to approach war. And it is in particular wrong to have one person decide alone that the U.S. is going to war. So I hope some of our members and many other members of NGOs and anybody who's awake and watching television will pick up the phone today and talk to their representatives.
Well, it's too early to get to the bourbon, Tom. Too early.
Yeah, I know.
What? Who are you to say? I mean,
Yeah.
you can do what you want.
I mean, how do you know what I got here?
I guess it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Hey, Maritza knows what I've got here. That's the problem.
I do know what he has in there. Yeah. Who are you to speak, Senator? I don't
That's
think
true.
you can say a thing. I don't
I
think you can
call
say a
the
thing.
kettle black, Hey.
Is there anything we're missing, Tom? Is there anything we're missing here in this conversation that you think is critical?
I hope we're not missing hope, because I can sure picture a lot of worst case scenarios. But I think if there is a public reaction and a congressional reaction, this does not have to be as awful as it has started out.
Amen, brother.
All right, Tom Countryman. I just thank you so much for your time. I always enjoy our conversations, even though they scare the shit out of me. But thank you so much, and we just appreciate your expertise on this. It's so critical in our understanding. So
Appreciate the time, Tom. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maritza. Thank you, Senator. I enjoyed it, and let's get going.
All right.
All right, let's get going. All right, Senator. Whew.
A lot of stuff. So
You need some bourbon.
here's the challenge as I see it. Okay. So we've got 4 main enemies to the United States in the country. The places that would just soon see us go away: Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran. The president went into Iran. I don't think it was well thought out. I don't think the exit policy is there. But man, it's going to be really tough for Congress to say, you know what, we're not gonna support this effort, because Iran has been a state
Bad actor.
of terrorism, a bad actor, and the toothpaste is out of the tube. The attack has already been made, and I'm sure this was part of the calculus the administration made. But in the end, they better damn well have a way to close this thing out. Otherwise, this is going to be a real mess. Not unlike Venezuela, but a lot bigger mess than Venezuela. And if they don't have a way to close this out, if they don't have a way to end this war in a way that is beneficial for the Iranian people, and by the way, all the things that have been said yesterday and today are absolutely true. They don't have weapons. They don't have a leader. I saw 60 Minutes last night. They had the son of a guy who's not been in the country for 47 years, says, I'm going to be there and I'm going to fix it.
Yeah.
It's not going to be easy at all. And the fact is that if you don't think about how you're going to get out of a conflict before you get into it, it's going to be a mess. And I'm not sure the folks out there, and by the way, I agree with him on General Kane. I think he is very capable. But the rest of the crew, I have my doubts very much.
Well, the fact, and Kevin talked about this yesterday, but the fact that the Iranian dissidents say there's no organization in the opposition, and you are going to roll your eyes at me, but my grandfather in the 70s actually produced a ski tourism documentary for Iran, and before the revolution, and it was with the Shah and the Empress, and he and Susie Chaffee and Billy Kidd went over and they did this ski documentary, and he made friends within the government there. And then so many of those friends, I mean, one in particular was in exile for the rest of their lives. And it was a really dangerous situation. So it's not this thing that's super organized, and people have been living in fear. And we've seen what they've done to the opposition. We've heard tens of thousands of people killed, and they don't have arms. And for President Trump to say, oh well, now's your chance, take it back. I mean, can you imagine? What is that supposed to look like?
It speaks of a lack of understanding. The other thing I would say is, remember, before this conflict started, a few days before this conflict started, General Kane said, we don't have the munitions and we don't have our allies. This probably isn't a good idea. You should listen to your military people. I'll just tell you that. Some people say, no, they just want war. They just want war. That has not been my belief. They want peace through deterrence, and I don't think this is where we are with this conflict at all. So, at any rate, that's it. It's a great day in north central Montana. What can I say? The sun's shining, the birds are singing, and it's way warmer than it should be. And
I do have a question for you.
What's that?
I do have a question for you though. When
Sure.
we talk about the deal that President Obama made.
Yeah, the JCPOA. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. And then for Trump to pull out of that, as Tom talked about. What do you remember about that? What do you remember about both of those events? And
what I remember about the JCPOA was the first time that we had eyes on the ground in Iran to look at what they were doing in their nuclear enterprise. It was done by a lot of really good negotiations. There were several big bills that I voted on that were important. This was one of the ones that was really important. Why? Because it had a chance to bring peace to the Middle East, and it had a chance to bring Iran into the 21st century. Because, by the way, they're young people. They don't like the government they've got. It's been
right.
Well done. This was an opportunity. Was it perfect? No, it wasn't perfect, but it was a giant step forward. And we had Europe on board. We even had Russia on board, as I recall, maybe even China on board. But the bottom line was he came in, he had a different agenda. I don't believe he had fully understood it. And by the way, it was done by Obama, so it was automatically bad. So he ripped it up. And now we're spending $1 billion a day in the Middle East bombing Iran. And for how long, I don't know. But for a conservative president, supposedly conservative president that's concerned about the debt, maybe an unnecessary expenditure of dollars. But this is the way it is. You got a lot of folks in the Senate right now that are cheering this on, just like they cheered on previous conflicts that the United States got into that haven't turned out very well by mine. It haven't added much stability to unstable areas. If this is different, then it's different, and it's for the good of the region. But as I said before, if you don't have a way to resolve the conflict before you get in it, you're making a huge mistake. We have been here before, and it was pointed out by Countryman. It was pointed out by Kevin Barron yesterday, and so that's it. But the JCPOA was a negotiated document that put eyes on the ground in Iran to see what they were doing. And by the way, some people say, well, they only saw certain things. No. They saw it. They had it. It was laid out. It wasn't perfect, but it was a hell of a lot better than what we got right now. I'll tell you that. But since it was a democratic idea, and since this president just absolutely believes division is the way to power, this is what we're seeing. Rip up anything that Obama did, rip up anything that Biden did, whether it was good or not, whether it was the benefit of the people or not, and replace it basically with nothing, by the way, except in this case, military hardware and military lives.
And I think what we haven't talked about, Senator, is that we are still in the middle of a partial DHS government shutdown here. We still have the issue of Venezuela. What's going on there? We still have we talked about it with Tom, the ongoing negotiations between Ukraine and Russia. And also how many people are kicked off their health insurance or lost all of their subsidies and they can't afford groceries right now.
That's right. And also what's going on with China and Taiwan. So
China and Taiwan.
You can get stretched out to the point where if you want to know what business and government, how they're alike, you get stretched out in business, it tends to take away from your profitability. The same thing can happen, only it's not called profitability, it's called security in government.
Well, let's stick to the hopeful. Let's stick to Tom's ending words on staying hopeful and Wednesday.
Because the truth is, and you touched on it, and I don't mean to beat this horse, but the truth is that affordability is still the number one issue in this country. And the president did not run on getting into wars. He ran on fixing affordability, and it hasn't been fixed. And whether it's in healthcare or whether it's in food or whether it's in housing, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. And people can't afford right now to be able to pay their bills. Many families in this country are up against it, and the president's fighting a war in Iran after he fought a war in Venezuela. That ain't America first.
And neighbor John is on the chat saying also the Epstein files. But I
True.
mean,
True too. Yep.
maybe he'll be up for that Peace Prize, that Nobel Peace Prize this year.
Well, he was already given one by the president, the
That's
former
right.
winner
That's
of the election in Venezuela. So.
That's right. And that other Peace Prize too, the one that they got. So, okay, we are going to let you start your Monday. Thank you to everyone who has joined us. We see some friends on here. We just want to say thank you for joining us. We want to say thank you to Tom Countryman. Really, like if you need help with Disney, I'm your girl. But if you need advice and oh wait, are we gonna talk? Oh, sorry, let me finish my thought and I'll get to your hat. If you need to
come back. Go ahead.
If you need to know anything about nuclear arms and the history of the Middle East, I mean, Tom is the guy to talk to. He's just brilliant. We thank him. Okay, what does your hat say? Organic pack.
That's it. Like I said, it came in the bag. I don't know when I got it, but it's cool. I didn't even know they had a pack. So hey.
Well, my son really wants me to get you one of those goofy hats, or like with the long ears and have
With a goofy hat. Yeah, no, I look goofy enough. I don't need a hat to confirm it. Okay.
Mary wants to know what the bat in the corner is for, Senator.
It's what I use to hit baseballs with. Okay. All right.
That's right. That's right. All right. Thank you to everyone for joining us. Thank you to Pearl Jam for letting us use their music. Thank you to Tom Countryman. We are only successful because of this community, and we just thank you so much. And we'll chat again soon.
Tally ho.